useful if you have a scene where things are shifting perspectives and stuff like that, okay? So that's gonna be Los Angeles aerial. And just in time for the Miami Film Festival, I got the new poster here, so we're gonna use that poster. And again, you can use your own graphics on this, right? If you wanna use your own graphics, feel free. You can use your own personal logo, whatever. But we're gonna, I provided the poster here for the 43rd annual. By the way, that starts on the 9th. So a lot of times they will send emails offering free tickets for some of these films at the Miami International Film Festival. I used to volunteer for years. I used to see a lot of these independent films, stuff like that. So check your email box, your inbox for some of these. We actually had a former student here that actually worked in the office, and she would offer all kinds of films for free. I do believe you all get a discount on the films. I think normally they're $12 a piece, but you might get them for a little bit less. Unfortunately, the student that used to go here now works at the Colony Theater, so she can no longer offer. You made her go outside?
No.
We did?
I guess.
We
I mean, I
didn't.
told her she can drink, but
Not eat.
Because it smells, right? And people
Yeah.
get, it's not
It's-
the time to be smelling McDonald's, right?
It's
All right,
not-
thanks for,
It's
you
not
know,
just
letting her
the
know.
smell, it's
I
just
kind
smell
of gave up on her, so, you know, I don't wanna, you know. But yeah, let's do it for the courtesy of others, right?
My backy hurts.
All right, so anyhow, check that out. That's coming up on the 9th, next week essentially. And let's go ahead and download these. So I'm gonna download my poster. And again, if you have other graphics you wanna use, feel free to do so. And then I'm gonna download
Look at me.
the Los Angeles
What the dog do?
aerial movie as well.
Little Mermaid.
And we'll kind of start with these. And as you can see, this one is just, it's a clip of kind of a helicopter shot of the buildings changing in perspective, right? And again, you can also, once you get this down pat, you can use your own footage for this kind of stuff, right? So not only can we track things, you know, moving from left to right, but we can also track things in perspective as well. So that's the idea. So let's go ahead and let's throw this into an After Effects project. And let's give this a shot and see what we can do with this. Okay, so again, these are in our tracking subsection in the modules for our class.
What's the name of it? Of the download?
LA,
Los Angeles?
yeah, Los Angeles something is one, and then I provided the movie poster, so MIFF, Miami International Film Festival 26 is the movie poster. We're also gonna put some text in it, so this probably will take the whole class, but we're gonna make this look pretty interesting.
Did you write it to type it? I mean, like write it down to remember? Because the one on Monday we went over there to help you change your phone.
Alright, one more splash room. So we'll bring these in. Go to my downloads here, Los Angeles aerial. We'll create a composition out of that. Okay, and then we're gonna bring in the poster. Easel poster, is that what it's called?
Evil poster.
Okay, let's make sure, sometimes these web Ps don't come in right.
Peas.
Okay, you know what, I should have brought that in Photoshop and cut out some of the, there's like a border around it. At any rate, we can work with that. I'm gonna scale this down. So we're gonna put this poster on the side of the building, and we're gonna have it go in perspective, right? So that it looks like it's a banner on the building. And you see, in fact, we have one right outside Building 1 here, commemorating the 250th anniversary of the United States America. So these are quite popular. They put them on buildings. You see them on 95 when you go through downtown, all kind of different posters, ads. Most of them are ads, right, for like Apple iPhones and things like that. All right, so we'll turn this layer off right now. And we'll just leave the footage. So if you play the footage, you can kind of see it's a nice, clean,
Adorable.
seems like we don't need any stabilization or anything like that here, right? Nice clean shot. As you can see, the building kind of moves across, right? So let's go ahead and, if you don't already have your tracker pulled up, go ahead and pull that up, because that's what we're working with here. So there's my tracker. And then we're gonna click on the Los Angeles. And on this one, I don't think it really matters if you're at the beginning or the end. It just analyzes the whole thing.
Track.
So the last one we haven't done, right, we've done all these other ones, is this one here called track camera. So go ahead and click on that. And this is automatically gonna go and do work its magic. And these can take a while depending on how long your clip is, or how, again, 4K clips, you know, if you're gonna use something like that, it's gonna take a little bit longer. So you gotta be a little bit patient. This is a pretty short one, so it shouldn't take too long. So what it does is it actually goes out and it looks at points in the scene here. And you can see it has these little track points, right? And they look like little X's or whatever. And you can see they're all over the building here, right? Some disappear, some reappear. Now you want to make sure you scrub through, right?
The rainbow.
To make sure that it did it right.
Okay.
Okay? In this case, it did. And obviously, the building here that we're going to be using is the one in the center, and it has the most track points. As you can see, this one here on the left, it's got a little bit of a rounded face, so it doesn't really pick up. In other words, there's not enough track points to really do anything with this one. But as you see, as I hover my cursor over, right, and I can actually click, and I can hold shift and click, and you generally want to make a plane, right? The plane that's at the same angle. And you can see there's a target inside that, right? You can also change your track points, right? You can make them bigger, or you can make them smaller so you can see things a little bit better. So those can be changed. As you see, once you enable that track camera, now you have this 3D camera tracker here, right? The target size as well can be changed. And that's what we're really looking for, is we're looking for this target. And you can see this target is at the same angle as the plane of the building, right? So you can see how that target then, if we put in this case, our movie poster on that, that's gonna follow that plane of the building. So I generally use like 4 points just to make a nice plane. So again, you're just gonna shift click, hold your shift key and click on it a little bit, right? Okay, any questions so far? All right, so we're not gonna do the front face right now, we're gonna do the side face. And you can see that as I shift it around, my target actually changes. And you can see that mostly it's at the right angle, right? But sometimes it kind of pivots, right? We don't wanna do that angle, right? Because that's gonna look weird, right? So we wanna actually put this poster right on the side of this building here. So, again, it doesn't really matter. You can move your poster around just like we did before when we tracked certain elements. So even though we tracked, let's say, the wildebeest, we can still put a null on that, and then we can move our image around. So what I'm going to do here, Sophia, you going to follow along
Yep.
today?
Yep.
Okay. So any questions so far? So did everyone do the track camera thing?
Yeah.
All right? And again, you can make the tracks bigger or smaller, so we'll just do that. Now I'm going to zoom in down so we can see. So what I like to do is I like to just find points that are pretty much, you know, in alignment, right? You wouldn't want to go and do some random points here, right? So we're just going to look for something that gives us a nice, okay, I'm going to stop here. A nice wide swath, right? So let me just zoom down here and look. Okay, so we got these two. All right, maybe I'll use this one here. So I'm going to click on that. shift click on this one, and then we'll go way down to the bottom here, and we'll look for these other two, maybe this one and this one, right? Okay, so we got our area defined, we have our target, the target is at the right angle, right? Then we're going to, basically, if you zoom in, you're gonna get this double arrow here, right? Right in the middle, or you go to the center of the target. Now, I'm just gonna right click on it, right? So let me do it one more time here, because I lost it. Okay, so again, click, hold shift, click again, and I'm just trying to go as wide as I can and cover as much as I can. And then when I get to the middle of the target, I'm gonna right click, okay? And this is where you can experiment a little bit, but right now we're just gonna create a null and a camera. So what it does then, it creates obviously a null, right? A null point, which then we can attach things to, so that null should follow, right? At the same angle of that, and then also creates a camera. Now, why is it creating a camera? Well, it's trying to emulate the camera move that we see in front of us. So that's why it goes out, it plots all these little plot points, right? And it sees like, oh, these are how things are changing in perspective. So it creates a synthetic camera that then emulates that same perspective, right? And that's going to be used for when we put our poster on there, right? It's going to move in the same way. So it creates a synthetic camera that has that same camera move, right? So we'll go create null and camera, right? Now we got our null, we got our camera here, right? Here is my my poster, right? I'm going to go ahead and let's size that down a little bit. We're going to make that go on the side of the building. So right now that might be a little bit large for that. So I'll just go in here to scale. We'll kind of scale it down a little bit more, right? And you know, we don't really need to position it because we're going to attach it to the null. So if you don't have parent and link up, you want to make sure you have that up. And if you don't see that, you can right click on that top and go into your columns and make sure it says, you know, I'm going to turn on modes too because I want it to kind of blend into the background a little bit. So make sure you got parent and link. And then we're going to take our poster in this case, right? And we're going to go ahead and grab the pick whip, or you can go parent and link, right? But if you hold the shift, notice what it says here. Hold shift to move layer to location of parent, right? So we want to move it to that null. So I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to say, okay, let's attach it to that null right there, okay? And look what it does. So it sets it up, moves it to the position here. Now, it jumps it up in size and everything, and it kind of does something here where, okay, this doesn't look right. It's not really doing anything. Well, first of all, everything in here that we've done since we tracked, right, is actually in 3D, right? So we want to actually put our poster in 3D as well, okay? So if it doesn't look right at first, make sure that you have your poster in 3D, right? Now, we don't need to do that with our background movie, right? That's already been kind of planned. And when you put it into 3D like that, it has a little bit of a weird turn to it, okay? So we can go in here and we can kind of fix that. But for the most part, it's following along, right? So that's okay. Now, it always does this weird skew at the bottom, right? Where it's kind of not straight. And that's because After Effects doesn't know where the ground plane is. It just sees this as, let's just put this on the building. So of course we can go in here to our rotation, right? And we can kind of change the Z rotation and we can straighten that out a little bit, right? Just like that. And as you can see here, my scale is a little bit too high, so I'm going to scale that down. And the thing is it might look right on this first frame, but remember, you got to scrub through and make sure it's not shifting. A lot of times it might have this gradual shift, or you might reveal. In this case, if I zoom in, you can see it's over the edges a little bit. So I just want to make sure I scale this down to the point where it looks like it's, again, a banner on the side of the building. Okay, if I want to go 42% and try to make it more precise, we can do so, right? And then remember, I can get, I like to use the local access mode because that gives me kind of a better angle. So I can go in here and I can say, oh, I want to move this just to the left a little bit, right? Or, hey, I want to move this up a little bit, or down, right? So again, maybe in this case, we wanna move it down, right, however you wanna do that. And again, we're just gonna scrub through and make sure that it's lined up properly. And you can see here that, again, the 3D tracker camera is just, again, a synthetic camera move that emulates the same move of the building. So there's our poster on the side of the building, right? And again, you can imagine how you could use this in different ways, right? In your own kind of animations and stuff like that, or just on footage, right? So there's our poster, and basically, did everyone get this to work?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Question?
Like, I was able to do it, but like, my poster like flies off the building.
You flies off the building?
Yeah.
Okay, you probably didn't get a good track, all right? Let me do it one more time here. So I'm gonna delete the no.
What up? What?
So by the way, if you got it to
That's
work,
feedback.
now you can go in there and just do the aesthetic part, right? So you may wanna just pull down the opacity just a touch, right? Because a lot of these posters are very thin material, right? So we can see the windows through, right? Or if you don't use opacity, you can also go in and use different things like overlay, right? Of course, that's a little bit too, right? But something like lighten, right, could work. Notice how lighten goes in and knocks the edge, the black frame out of there, right? So we could do something like screen maybe, right? Okay, so that gives it a little bit more, or you can do these in conjunction with, let's see, add, that's a little bit too much. So we can just kind of go through here. Oop, that's too much. So generally, we'll do something like that, or we'll just leave it on normal, and then you can just kind of lower the opacity a little bit, right, to make it kind of look like it blends in, right? Okay, let me do it one more time, because again, it's imperative that you get the right track, okay? So, we're back to the beginning here. Notice that even though I delete everything, my poster still is in perspective, but it's not moving at all, right? So let's try that again, okay? Now, if you want, I'll bring this back in from scratch, because you can see it's in perspective here, which is no big deal, right? Skip tour. So let's jump back over,
Is he like responsible for his work? Like to check grades?
and I'll just bring that in. And I know that I'm gonna scale this down, so I'm just gonna go ahead and scale it down for now. And in this case, we can turn on the 3D layer too if we want, but we don't need to do anything else. Okay, so we'll go back, Los Angeles aerial, track camera,
So we have all agreed, so
let it do its magic,
the other two. His friends.
okay? Okay, something happened here, it didn't really work. Let's try it again. Okay, there it goes. Should I say analyzing at first?
Well, I got it, but I'm just trying to fix it a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it should work. It should move in a smooth manner, like the way I showed. If it doesn't, then something went wrong. Okay.
As he got him, I'm pretty sure what he had is basically he doesn't have it attached to like the part of the wall, because if it comes outside, that means it's not sticking to the
Right.
wall.
So what's important here is that you do the right thing after. Okay, so let me show you that. We want to make the camera and create camera and no. That's what we want to do here. So again, I'm just going to scrub through to make sure, because again, some of these points are disappearing and reappearing. So those are points we don't want to really use, right? Because they're gonna mess us up. And maybe I got lucky here before. Let's see. But I'm gonna lower these down. And again, like I won't start maybe from the beginning or the end, but maybe I'll start from the middle and just kind of choose from there, okay? And you can see here a couple are disappearing. So I'm gonna make sure I don't use those that disappear, right? And so what I'll do here is, let's see, I'll use this one. And again, click once, shift, hold shift, click again.
Over here. I'm over here.
and then just go through and make a wide a swath as you can. Right? Maybe you didn't choose a large enough area or whatever. I'm choosing a large enough area because I want to make sure that, and again, once I do that, I can kind of make sure that everything stays, right? So let's try that again, one more time. Okay, now if some of these points disappear, then that could cause you some trouble. So this is something that you might have to do a couple times. Once we've got something here, I'm just going to go to the center. Notice how I get the 4 points on my cursor, right? And then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say create null and camera. Okay? Now you can see there's a lot of options here. You can experiment with those on your own, but right now let's do this one right here, which is create the null and camera. And again, the null is going to be the attach point. The camera is going to be a synthetic camera move that's going to emulate the camera move that we have in front of us, and it's going to put our poster on that. Okay? So I'll go ahead and say create null and camera. It creates those automatically, right? Okay? So now we can kind of scroll through, right? And we don't have to do anything else here. In fact, if you feel these are getting in the way, you can always kind of turn off the effects or whatever, right? And they should disappear. Okay? But we'll leave those on for now. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my poster and I'm going to parent it to that null. Okay? So I'm going to use my pick whip. Okay? And then normally you'll just select it, right? But in this case, notice it says shift. Use shift to move layer. So I'm going to hold my shift key down. Hold shift to move layer to location. That's what we want to do. We don't just want to attach it, but we want to move it to that location, right? So I'm going to hold shift, boom, move to location. Of course, my poster was off. That's why it was grayed out. Let me undo that. Let's turn the poster on again. So you can see here. So again, pick whip. Hold shift to move layer to location. I know it's hard to see, but it's right there in the timeline. And then once I do that, there goes my poster, albeit with that little bit of a skew there because it doesn't know where the ground plane is. But again, that's easy enough to fix just by going in here and saying Z rotation and just kind of straighten that up. In this case, it's going to be somewhere like negative 10% or something like that, right? And then all we got to do is go in here and just change the scale to make sure it matches what we have on the building. Right? And then I'm going to zoom in. And I'm just going to use these arrows, these 3D arrows, to just kind of, right? And if you feel that, okay, maybe the angle's not quite right, right? Not that you'd want to do this, right? But you could do a little bit of that, right? Kind of angle it up a little bit. You could move it one way or another. All right, but I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to keep it straight. So here I'm just going to move it down a little bit. And I want to make sure that as I scrub through, the sides aren't peeking out. It's not, sometimes you get a bad track where it slowly shifts as it goes through. You don't want any of that. You don't want to see a gap between the poster and the building. Not that you can push it into the building, right? But you can try to get it as close enough to that building as possible.
Excuse me, Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Dude, what the?
Where did I want it to run?
If he had a dagger, I'd have been like Macbeth there, just bleeding out on the table,
Yeah.
All right. Anyhow, God, I need to. That was a good. He should have yelled April Fools, huh?
Ah,
That would have been a good one. All right. Any questions? Is everyone getting this to work?
Yeah.
Notice it's not shifting, it's not sliding, right? This is a good one. Look how the line right here is really perfect, right? And the gap, there's no weird angles, okay? So that's the camera tracker that allows you to emulate a camera move and then put something in here. So now we have the brand new Miami Film Festival, right, on the building, so we're advertising, okay? So all we gotta do now is, again, you could add lights to this, you could add a spotlight if you wanted to and all this kind of stuff. As you can see, once we first set up the tracker, when you right-click on it, you can actually add a light, a shadow catcher, all this other kind of stuff, right? We're gonna do something a little bit different from that, but again, you can experiment with that. So all you really have to do now with the poster is just kind of lower the opacity or change the blending mode, right, a little bit. Again, that's the something here. Jesus. He's like, maybe in his past life he was a specter or a spirit or something like that.
He must be a spy.
Okay, so we're just gonna go through here and just kind of change that up, right? Maybe lower that opacity a little bit, just so we see through a little bit of those windows, right?
Yeah.
Okay? And what's cool too is that when you lower the opacity, you can actually see some of the reflections behind it. So you can actually see another building reflecting there, okay? All right, everyone got this?
Yep.
Sophia, you following along?
I'm trying.
Even though I know how to do it, I'll help her.
Okay. Any questions? Should I go one more time? Or has everyone got this?
Are you trying to like link the image to the?
Okay, so that's the tricky part, right? So right now, let's see, I'm gonna put it back to none, right? So what I'm gonna do here is, obviously, you gotta have your track null and your 3D tracker when you did the points, right? So on the poster, what you're gonna do is, on the parent and link, we're gonna parent this to it, right? But we're not just gonna normally parent it. We wanna hold shift to move layer to location, right? So I'm gonna hold shift, and then I will parent it to that track null, okay? And that's what it does. Okay, so that's the key. And then once you do that, go ahead and scroll through, and it should be moving in the right, let's say the right angle here. And then all we have to do is fix that Z rotation a little bit. Right, and then we gotta scale it down a little bit. I think I was using like 42 or something like that. Okay, and then it's just a matter of, let's just tweak. We're gonna tweak that angle just a little bit, make it nice and straight. And then use our arrows to move it into position. So that's the cool part, is I can move this anywhere on the building I want.
No.
Once I've got it. Okay, let's see, 19, let's see, negative 18. Oops, that's the wrong way. Negative 17. Okay, and then just the rest of it's just a matter of tweaking it up and making it look realistic. All right. I can't seem to get it. Negative 19. All right, there. Okay, so then we have that. All right, there's our poster. All right, and that's the brand new one too I provided. So that's for this year's 43rd Film Festival. Okay, any questions?
It's really
Bring a little bit more opacity here, okay? So we got that. So now let's put some text on the other part of the building and make it look pretty realistic too. So let's say there's the cool poster, somebody, spent a lot of time on the graphics, still kind of hard to read from 95, right? And again, I wish I had some footage from 95, but my camera
I wasn't that young.
is not functioning properly, right? But again, feel free to experiment, I know the new iPhones have a built-in stability that does really quite well. So if you want to just take a shot at shooting something out your car window or whatever, shooting from the Metro Mover or something like that, you could kind of give it a try yourself. Obviously, you're going to want to go ahead and, stabilize motion first, right? Because it's going to be hard to track, right, when there's bad motion. You can see this one's crystal clear. But let's work on some text here, right? So now we can go back to our Los Angeles aerial, right? And if I should be able to see, here's my points, none of them have left, right? They're all still there. I just kind of turned off the effects button, so I didn't see all those, right? But they're all here, so we can use, let's do the other part of this building with some text, right? So I'm gonna come in here, we'll do the same thing, we're just gonna scrub through and make sure that none of these points are disappearing. There's a lot more points on the right edge than on the left edge. Right, so this one is a lot more stable. So again, I'm gonna grab and try to get the widest area here that I can, so that way I know that I'm covered, right? So we'll do that one. And again, the target will tell you if it's in the right angle. Go to the center, right click, okay? Create text. Now here's some other stuff you can experiment with. Create shadow catcher and light. Now we're gonna, we're not gonna put lights on here, just because, yes, they'll shine on our graphics, but they're not really gonna shine on the building, right? But yeah, you could do several spotlights on the graphics or whatever, like a premiere night or something like that. But in this case, we'll just kind of create text here, okay? So there's my text. And again, you can see it's a text layer. We worked with this a little bit. I can double click it. I can type what I want. Right? Of course, I gotta go in here and I've gotta set the size and stuff to make sure it fits. Right? I wanna make sure I double click it so I can actually edit it. Right? You can still see it has that weird angle to it, right? Which we can easily fix as well. I'll
Yes.
set up the,
Something? Right.
what I like to call the,
Since everybody's just,
right, and again, I hate the Times New Roman, so let's pick a font that's a little bit more interesting, there we go. Right, and remember, we're crunching these letters together, we want it to fit and look very graphic, very distinct, so Miami. And then maybe below, see if I can get another line on here.
Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida.
Miami
Like
Film
the-
Fest.
the download, say download. No,
Okay, these are a little bit too tight, so we'll change these to -85.
I can struggle on this part.
Okay, this gap right here is a little bit,
This.
let's relax this a little bit.
it's the other way.
Okay, and then look at the space between these lines here, that's not right, so we'll change that. Matter of coming in and just, this is 18 point, let's try 14. Okay,
And Professor,
yep,
and can you make the,
we'll
the
center these.
letters-
Go ahead.
Let's see, so can you give it like the letters, kind of like a drop shadow, but just like have like some dimensionality behind them to make them look two-dimensional?
Like a shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, yeah. But let's just, yeah, let's get these set up here. And again, you can give it color, right? Yeah, I'm gonna show you how to do that in a second. So, I don't know, maybe we'll do, of course, that matches the building a little bit. Let's just do blue.
And blue, will be up.
Teal, maybe, with a stroke of orange. We'll do kind of like Miami colors, maybe. Okay, stroke 1 point, that's a little bit too much. So we'll go 0.5, maybe a little bit less. Okay, you can go stroke over fill, fill over stroke, however you want. If you want it to just be very subtle, all right, you can do that as well. All right, it seems like I need a little bit more space here. Let's go 13. All right, let's see, I also did, ooh, that's weird. that's just for this one, I see. All right, whatever, I'm just gonna put that in the center. And as you can see here, under the rotation, whoops. Let's go into transform, under rotation here. Notice this is a 3D layer, right? Automatically creates that, and we just wanna make sure we rotate this to be nice and straight. Okay? And then of course I'm gonna move it over. You're not gonna have letters hanging off the side, right? So we gotta move that over. Make sure you're on your arrow key. Whenever you're dealing with text, if you're on the text tool and you start clicking, you're gonna mess it up. So you gotta go back to the arrow. We'll move this over now. Like such. And then when we play it, now we got the text. Again, it's sticking to the building. It's not sliding as it goes through, right? As to your point, let's do a little bit of a shadow there. And again, you could do a light here, but you'd have to do the shadow catcher because the light isn't gonna hit the building on that specific side, right? So we'll just kind of fake it here. So what we can do on this one is we'll just go in and duplicate that. Control D, duplicate, right? The one in the back now, let's turn off the one in the front and we'll just kind of make that into a shadow. Right, so again, I'll go here, I'll double click that, make that selection, and we'll just kind of go back and say we don't want any fills or stroke, or we want the fill to be black in this case, right? Okay, and there's that. We don't need any stroke here, right? And then, you know, we can always push that back as well, so we can get our arrow here and just kind of push that into the background a little bit. So now when we turn on our other layer, we've got that. Let's push it back a little bit more so we can see it. Something like that, right? And then of course you can go into your opacity, T for transparency, and you can turn that down. Or you could use your blending modes. Or you could go into effects, blur if you want, right? I always like the Gaussian, I don't know why, but.
Now you gotta put the dots.
Okay,
And then the dots.
and in fact, let's go back in here and let's put the stroke on black, so we got something a little bit. So we can kind of come in here and we can make that shadow as big as we want, right? We can kind of come in here and really make that. Oops. Let's make that 3 points. Let's see what that does. Okay. So that makes it look like it's going really far behind. Alright, and so you decide where, you know, how you want that to be displayed or whatever. Okay. Now we can also parent these. I can parent the shadow to the first one. That way if we move it over, as you can see I'm getting a little too close to the edge. Oops. Let's click on the first one here and let's move it, and the shadow should move with it. We can decide whether we want to move this up or whatever we want to do with it. We'll kind of put that right there. All right, any questions? Everyone getting this text? Yeah? Is it at the right angle? It's not creeping as it moves or anything like that?
Miami Dolphins, brother.
And you can put whatever you want there, you know. I'm just trying to make it fit in there, you know, using this. Okay, so this looks pretty cool, but what's the obvious problem here on this? Let's be honest here.
The shadow?
Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, the shadow should be a little better, but what should we do with the shadow?
Because it's supposed to
Is
be
it too
this-
blurry?
Yeah, let's do rotation.
No, it's the shadow of the building over.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So yeah, if this is, you know, light where the sun's hitting it, and this is dark because it's in shadow, that obviously doesn't look right. So how would we fix that?
Let's see. Just like a simple mask, and then like matching like the color of the.
Yeah, exactly. So we could essentially take this thing, mask it, right?
this picture.
And then, yeah, we're just gonna kind of turn down the intensity of that, okay? So these are things that, remember, in this class, I'm kind of giving you the framework, the foundation and stuff like that, right? And we're learning the process, but again, a lot of hours are spent just on tweaking and changing, and you can just keep adding and doing things. So just be mindful of all the things you've learned throughout the semester and say, well, rather than get really complicated and try to figure out what effect can handle this, let's just do it with mask or something like that, right? So what I could do here is simply, yeah, create a mask. And remember that line, right, is actually going to move too, right? So that, that mask has to actually animate as well, right? So, and there's another thing too. If my text was also going a little further, right?
Further you
Let me
go.
undo this. Go back to the top one. I would want to have that cut off as well, right? So I wouldn't be able to see this. It would be cut off. And so these are all things you can do to increase the credibility, increase the believability of this, right? So I guess let's just start with the simple stuff too. So let's just move this back over and we'll just kind of create this mask effect.
Can you go?
Right.
Thank you.
So what I can do is on this very first one, we can go in here, and as we know, we have to select that layer. We can go in with our masking tool, right, if we want, and just kind of come down the line here with that mask.
Let that
Right.
mask go before it smacks
Either
someone in the
include
face.
or exclude, like whatever we want, right? So in this case, maybe I want to come in here with my mask, and I can say inverted or whatever, right? So we have that. So now we're cutting that piece out, right? And then maybe I want to take this one, and this is where, again, I haven't been taking the time, but this is where you might want to name your layers, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this and wing this a little bit. So we'll duplicate that. Now we'll invert that mask, right? Okay, let's take off the top one here. So we'll work on this one. So this is the one we want to kind of go. This one we want to be a little bit less intense or less saturated, right? So we'll come into this one here, right? And again, this is where things get confusing. So you want to be keeping track of things. And we'll just go maybe to effect, color correction, and then again I'll just use a simple one here.
That shit.
To saturation, and we'll just pull some of that saturation out, right?
This is what I got.
And or lightness,
I want these two.
kind of make it look like it's in the shadow here. It's up to you how you want to do that,
Here you go.
right?
It's right in here.
Okay, let's see.
gonna annoy you.
We'll take some more lightness out here,
We're gonna
okay?
test something.
And again, these are just little things that add to the credibility, right? Okay, so let's rewind that, and let's play it. Now, as I said earlier, okay, well, that one doesn't actually creep or anything like that, so we can,
Excuse me, Mr. Rams.
yes, you got it?
I,
Somewhere. Job identifying, what we need to do to fix that. And again, it seems like a lot of work, but the payoff is that you get this kind of realism, this credibility, right? Okay? And we got a little bit of a drop shadow behind it. So obviously we can work on that if we want to. This is the drop shadow here.
Okay, text right here.
So I could go in here and say drop shadow,
Just put that.
just so I know what that is.
Yep.
And then we can decide,
Sorry, what that got, yeah.
again, maybe we don't want it to be that blurry at all, just maybe 2 pixels or even 1.
Okay, maybe we could just maybe
Change that opacity, move it in position wherever you want to move
Here
it,
you go, got it.
right? So that's one thing, and then the other thing is, I'm gonna make it a little bit more complicated. I'm gonna widen my text out a little bit. Okay, so I'll come back in here. Let me see here.
Need to Right.
Miami International Film Festival, ooh, it's squeezing it in there, okay. So, let's go back, I'm gonna show you one more thing here. We'll forget about that.
It's an LI, it says film.
Okay, I still got my mask here.
Is film.
Okay, so I'm gonna double click this, select everything. Let's not squeeze this in too much in terms of the kerning here, right? And let's just get rid of this mask for now. We'll come back to that. So now that I move this over, obviously it's running into that other building, right? Okay? So now we need to make an animated mask that basically moves with it, okay? Here it looks fine, right? It may be a little bit off the building right here, so let's just, I'm gonna get rid of the drop shadow where we make that. So here it's okay. Let's just go a little bit more in the kerning, space in between.
So separated.
Aye. All right, so we got that. But at the beginning, it's totally, totally unbelievable, right? So what we're gonna do here is we'll use that same mask trick again, right? So this time we'll come in, I'll check that, come in with my mask. Again, we'll kind of blot that out. Anytime we want, we can invert that, right?
It's like that.
And so now we need to animate this mask, right, mask path. And as this goes through, it's gonna reveal more and more. So we can come in here, and this is just done by hand. I mean, you could probably, I guess we could go to right here where everything's gonna show, and we could just kind of change this by just sliding that over and revealing everything. So let's see how that works. So now it looks like it's actually behind the building, which is interesting. Okay, so let's double click that. I'm gonna squeeze this in a little bit more. Because I don't want that other text to slide off the edge there, so -15. And so just by having an animated mask here, gives the illusion that everything looks like it's actually stacked, you know, in these kind of 3D layers, right? And then we can go back in and, you know, we gotta do the other thing with the other mask and all that, but you can see how you can add complexity to this, right? But the cool thing is that once you have that synthetic camera move, everything else kind of follows along with it. Okay, so kind of do something with the text. And let's see what happens here, okay? And again, you can put your own movie poster or your own, okay? So now I'm gonna work on, we'll create a drop shadow at the end, but let's work on doing this dull part right here, where the light's not hitting as much either. All right, so what can we do here? So now we need to have another mask, right, to kind of demarcate what's in full sunlight and what's not, right? So we'll come in here again. Remember, we can have more than one mask, obviously. So I'll go ahead and create another section here. Actually, what we'll do, let's see, we're gonna just, maybe we'll duplicate that.
No, we're not. There. This is the pendejo I got.
Mm.
I wanted, if I wanted this one, just
We'll come in
demon
here and we'll fix this.
or demon, or the shading part,
Oh, all of them.
Another mask.
not just one of them.
I gotta get that one and that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna get. That's all I'm gonna get. But that's only in breakfast. And look at this person selling it for. Remember the phone was paying for that shit?
So sometimes instead of hitting the invert, right, you gotta go in here and say add or intersect or whatever, right? In this case, inverse, there's no inverse here, but we can say subtract, right? We can turn on this one. And this one can be the one that's dull. So, let's see, we can take this mask, control copy, control V, paste it in there.
Found it. Just separate them.
Okay,
So,
and so the one on the bottom,
Mm.
we can always make it darker by going into just the hue saturation here. Remember, when things are in shade, they're also, they're not as saturated and they're actually darker, so we gotta take some saturation out. Let's not go too much here.
it's because I didn't get the right card.
Okay, so we end up with 2 layers, 2 masks each, right? I guess we wouldn't need to have as many, but, and remember, I'm also doing things like subtracting and intersecting. So just think about a mask is kind of a mathematical formula, how it's affecting the layer, whether it's intersecting with another mask, whether it's subtracting from another mask. And again, you might have learned some of this from the art and design class when we were using these for selections in art and design, where we can actually use different type of selections. So it's just something that if you're kind of cognizant of and you know how to do this, and again, we've been working with masks the whole semester, so it's just something that it should be relatively intuitive, okay? A lot of times there's a way to simplify it here, but now we kind of completed the effect, right? And again, I don't have to have anything selected here. So let's see. So this one right here, if I go back in and hit M for mask, right? You can see that the first keyframe is a little bit too far, so I need to move that over, right? So here's my text, so I want to move that right on the edge right there. And then as it goes through, it's going to reveal. And you can see, now it goes too far in on the next keyframe. So let's fix that as well. Just going to double click and kind of pull that out, right? So that maybe shifted a little bit since I shifted. And so now the effect again, it looks a little bit more realistic. And so there we got our poster reveal and we got some text reveal, right? And of course you can come in here too. I'm not going to talk about the advanced renderer anymore because apparently a lot of these machines don't have it. But you could go in with the advanced renderer and you could make that text look more 3D and stuff like that. Of course, we could go in here as well, and we could add some other stuff to that. So if I wanted to go into layer, right, layer styles, and I want to do my bevel and emboss to make it look a little bit more 3D, you know, we could do that. And of course, notice that we're stacking a lot of stuff up here. So here's bevel and emboss. Instead of going smooth, I want it to be chiseled.
I want him and
Chiseled soft maybe, right? Oof, that doesn't look so good either.
And
That's what an emboss looks like. Outer bevel. Doesn't look so good. Inner bevel, right? So we'll go chisel soft. You can change the depth of that, right? How much you want to make it look, okay? The size of it as well, maybe just a little subtlety here. Okay.
Because in the morning it's just this.
We'll leave that.
The pink is in the morning.
All right, and then we can copy that and place that on the other layer as well, because we want that to have the same effect, right?
Because you have to ask this.
And just to give a little bit more oomph.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not free.
No. It has to be hundreds.
Yeah, let's leave the size alone, we don't want to mess with that too much. In fact, we'll go a little bit less on that. Okay. Layer styles, double emboss. And then we end up with something like that. Okay? Any questions? The shadow mask. So all I did is I took that same layer and I used a mask, I duplicated it, and I used a mask to hide that top layer, right? So let's take a look at that. If we just turn everything off here so you can see.
The receipt code, you get the points, right?
Right? So if we come down to just my layers here,
That one to my left.
Because I'm still waiting for like
right?
the fix.
So
to see
if
if
I
it
was
works.
to zoom in on that, you can see that, okay, so there's my top layer. So I use this mask to cut out that top layer, right? And then on the bottom layer, obviously it's the opposite, right? So I can use my masks, right? I can invert them, in this case, right, invert. And then I have a second mask here. One is to make it dull, and one is to actually animate, right? You can see the brown one is to animate. That actually reveals it. So you're just basically using masks and using different layers. So this layer, right, is actually, I turn down the saturation and the lightness, right? So that's normally what it would look like, but after I do that, it gives to me the effect that it's in shadow. And then this is the actual animated mask layer. And of course, this has to be the same for both, right? On the brown one here, right? Because both of these have to be revealed or hidden or whatever, okay? Hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, anytime you're doing some lighting effects like that, you gotta duplicate that layer and you gotta have, you know, lighting effects that are unique to each layer, right? Okay? And that way we kind of complete the effect. And as you can see, as it gets to the end, if I hit end here, you can see kind of that L is kind of going off a little bit. So it's just a matter of let's go in and let's move that over a little bit, or I could just up, instead of never 15, we'll go 16, just a little bit more. Whoops, not 19, 16. And kind of pull that in a little bit more. Something like that. Okay?
Okay.
So if you get it?